This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year. I'm pleased to welcome everyone to today's regular and organizational meetings of the Hudson River Black River Regulating District. For members of the public attending remotely, the agendas are available at hrbrd.ny.gov under Board Meeting. We ask that you please close other programs on your computer or phone, silence your cell phones, and mute your audio when not speaking. The conference organizer will monitor the program's chat function for public comment. I'd like to call our organizational meeting to order. Our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
To the
the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
one nation,
under God,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I like the.
No roll call?
We'll go into our organizational meeting. I will call to order the organizational meeting. A motion to adopt the meeting agenda.
We need a roll call first.
Okay. Sorry.
No problem. Board Chair Mark Finkel,
Here.
Second Vice Chair Alfred Candido Jr.
Here.
First Vice Chair Kenneth DeWitt.
Here.
Board members Albert Hayes.
Here.
Richard Byrd. Here. Timothy Reagan.
Here.
And Nicole Allen.
Here.
Executive Director John Callahan.
Here.
General Counsel Robert Leslie here. Chief Engineer Robert Fulton.
Here.
Chief Fiscal Officer Timothy Minicha.
Here.
And the Director of Administrative Services Stephanie Rizicki.
Here.
Everybody is counted.
Thank you. Now I need a motion to adapt the meeting agenda.
I make that motion. Mr. Hayes.
Second,
I'll second.
any discussion?
Consent.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next thing I have on here is the election of officers.
You got that, Chair.
Hmm?
Chairman Finkel asks for nominations for chairperson. I nominate Mr. Mark Finkel for chairperson. Is there any other nominations? Hear none?
Any second?
Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Reagan.
Mr. Reagan seconds that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed?
You want a one page for the agenda, Mr. Chairman?
Okay, I'm sorry. Next, we need the,
Nomination for the first.
the nominations for first vice president.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Kenneth DeWitt.
We have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Reagan, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Now we need a nomination for the second vice chair.
I'd like to nominate second vice chair, Mr. Alfred Candido.
I'll second it.
And second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Next, the appointment of the secretary treasurer and assistant secretary treasurer. I'd like to nominate for secretary, Mr. Leslie, treasurer, Mr. Minicha, and assistant secretary treasurer, Mr. Fulton. Is there a second to that?
I will second that.
Mr. Hayes.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Designation of the official newspapers. We'd like to nominate the Times Union for the Albany area and the Watertown Daily Times for the Watertown area. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And I have a note here that this is a roll call vote.
Yes. Mr. Frankel,
Yes?
Mr. Hayes,
Yes.
Mr. DeWitt,
Yes.
Mr. Byrd,
Yeah.
Mr. Candido,
Yes.
Mr. Reagan.
Yep.
And Ms. Allen.
Yeah.
7-0.
Next, tentative dates and locations for our 2025 meetings. You all have a list. If you don't, I can read it off to you.
Of note is no April meeting.
Okay, February, no meeting scheduled. Next one is Tuesday, March 11th, here. The April meeting is in the Hudson River the Black River area, excuse me, to be determined. May 13th at SFO, June 10th at SFO, July 8th at SFO, and August, no meeting scheduled. September 9th, the FSO, and October 15th, the Black River area to be announced, and November, SFO. I need a motion to accept the tentative dates.
I will.
Second,
I will second that.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Is there any other board member questions or comments? And I look for a motion to adjourn the organizational meeting.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Ms. Allen, Mr. Reagan. Out at
All in
10:06.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Move right into our regular board meeting. Call the regular board meeting to order of the January 2025 board meeting. Roll call, Mr. Leslie.
Board Chair Mark Finkel,
Here.
First Vice Chair Kenneth DeWitt,
Here.
Second Vice Chair Alfred Candido,
Here.
Board Members Albert Hayes,
Here.
Richard Byrd, Timothy Reagan,
Here.
Nicole Allen,
Here.
and Alfred Candido.
Here. Again.
All set.
Still here.
I need a motion to adopt the meeting agenda.
I will make that motion.
Mr. Hayes,
We have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Allen,
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Public comment, I didn't get,
We do have one member of the public here
Okay.
that would like to address.
Hi, good morning. My name is Tara Clancy, permit holder from South Shore Road. Just a quick question, the Conklingville Dam work, is that still on schedule? Has that gone out for bids yet? And is the work still planned to be done in Q3?
So I think we could say, Mr. Chairman, as the board is aware, New York State is undertaking this project on behalf of the regulating district. We're working with the Office of General Services and the engineering consultant Bergman on that project. I think it's fair to say, as things stand today, we have no reason to believe there would not be a letting in Q3 of this year. It's important to note that unlike other projects like Indian Lake and Hawkinsville and Old Forge and Six Lake, we don't control the schedule directly. Mr. Reagan may say we don't control the schedule necessarily on those projects either, but
I can't believe you would say
suffice it,
that.
I've just-
The first shot across the bow.
I give you a softball, Mr. Reagan. But certainly we're continuing to work with the state Office of General Services and the engineering consultant on that project, and we still believe we're looking at a fall 2025 letting,
Thank you.
and that would be a multi-year project
Thank you.
without any changes to normal elevations on the reservoir.
any other, either out there or in here, anybody else want to address the board? Either on Zoom or here.
Megan, have you had anybody sign up online?
I have not yet.
Okay. Next, I need the approval of our November 13th, 2024 regular board meeting minutes. If you all got? Any motion to accept?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Reagan, second.
Second.
Mr. Byrd.
Any discussion or corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Report of our executive director, Mr. Callahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My report appears on pages 9 to 10. The members have had an opportunity to review in recognition of our agenda this morning. I'll simply note that I don't want to steal Director of Administrative Services thunder, but we are right into renewal season. We've entered in a new era this year with not sending paper renewals to each permittee, especially those who have established an online account in the past. So been new for our staff. And I want to commend not just Stephanie, but the rest of the staff here at the Sacandaga Field Office who have worked diligently to make sure this is successful and we're responsive to customers. You'll hear some additional good news from Stephanie on that in a little while. So appreciate all the great work on that. Certainly good to be able to move into the 21st century with that process. But I also want to note, while I have the speaking stick, I'm sure many of the members saw we had a tragedy on Great Sacandaga Lake over the weekend. It's terrible to see. We've certainly worked very closely with our partners within the Safe Lake Initiative community and local law enforcement, including Sheriff Richard Giardino, who's certainly prominent in the response, his office, and certainly in some of the coverage that you've seen on this death. But we continue to try and work with our partners in law enforcement to get important information out about safety, not just in the winter, but of course the summer as well. And certainly we hate to see this. Our prayers and certainly go out to the family affected, and we'll continue to work with our partners to try and make this body of water and other bodies of water in our jurisdiction as safe as they possibly can be. And with that, I'll pause for any questions that the members may have.
Any questions? Thank you. Contracts and actions. First, a resolution to approve amendment number 7, Indian Lake First Engineering Assessment Contract number CO32-013. Mr. Pulte.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The memorandum begins on page 11. Rehabilitation of Indian Lake Dam continues to successfully advance. We're making very good improvements, completed quite a few of them over the last year now or so, including grouting and anchoring of the masonry dam and spillway, reconstruction of the access bridge over the spillway, and installation of bulkhead gate and gate hoist. Improvements to the embankment and the abutment wall are ongoing, and work has progressed steadily. We have, though, had some complications due to site conditions. Those include larger than anticipated voids in the stone masonry dam and the existing bulkhead logway foundation, which have contributed to scheduled delays. And that work is anticipated to be completed by the end of March. And those unanticipated site conditions have led to certain construction changes requiring additional engineering work as the construction of Indian Lake Dam has progressed. The regulating district directed its consulting engineering firm, Colliers Engineering and Design, to provide additional design and construction support services necessary to advance the construction project in response to the unanticipated construction changes. CED's additional effort has included additional project management and inspection related services due to construction work extending past the original schedule, and additional review and design effort to address contractor submittals and requests for information. I've included attached to my memo a proposal for the additional fee and services related to the continued construction inspection. While staff certainly does support, and in order to progress the project to its natural end, we need to have that construction inspection completed. But
by Colliers. We certainly do recommend accepting the proposal and increasing the contract C03 2013 by a not to exceed amount of $145,000 to a total contract price of $2,413,377. I do also want to mention, just on Friday, the district received notice from Colliers that it's identified an engineering error in its calculations regarding some of the anchors and the anchor quantities. And this error will likely result in some construction changes, and the cost of which at this point is not known. But in light of even that notice by Colliers, staff is still in support of increasing their contract price by $145,000 in order to complete the construction inspection work during the remaining duration of construction. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Let me just, if I may, Mr. Chairman, just add to that, the request by Colliers on this amendment that we're recommending to the board today follows a few months of negotiations with them. It reflects a much smaller number than they were initially seeking. I want to thank Mr. Fultan, certainly Mr. Minicha, who's not uninvolved with that conversation as well. But this new issue that Mr. Fultan references was brought to both of our attention. We'll be on the phone with Colliers tomorrow at 7:30, I think, to discuss it further. But we did not, given the timing of the board's consideration of this amendment, which is unrelated to that work, we did not want to mention it because it's relevant information that we thought the board should have. And we will invite what I imagine will be some discussion on this item now. So thank you.
Thank you. First, let's get a motion on the table to accept the increase.
Can we ask a couple questions first, Mark?
Once we get the motion on the table.
All right.
We have a motion to accept? No?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Second?
I will second that, Mr.
Okay.
Hayes.
Any discussion now?
I'm just trying to understand your processes. And it's hard for me to understand it, so that's why I ask questions. Because, so if they had first of all, in your bidding process, when we come back for additional scope changes and stuff in the bidding process, or misses and stuff, what do you have to do as far as going through and justifying that one company came in with a lower bid than the other company? Because after you go out and give the bid out, it seems like we continue to increase the amount of capital that we're spending on a project of going on. Is there ever any type of a way that you guys come back around and look at that and ask the question, you were the low bid, but you had 5 or 6 different changes that came in. One was with the engineering firm that you said missed that. When do any of these companies pick up the responsibility for, and is it different in state government than it is in private business?
It is. So if the project is properly determined,
Scoped out.
then you'll solicit bids, you'll get the low bid,
Mhm.
you'll determine whether that bidder is adequate or not
On the construction side.
on the construction side. And if the scope changes,
Mhm.
then depending on how widely varied that scope is from your original plan, you may be forced to go back out and rebid the project if it's a completely different project. That is different than what we're talking about here, which is the scope is the same, but the work involved in addressing that scope changes because of conditions that were not patent. They're latent conditions. For instance, the voids in the masonry structure were below ground, difficult to find without probing, and, you know, not accessible other than underwater. So in that case,
And which is why they're done at a unit price, so that we have a known rate which will cover additional quantities should they,
right,
should the contractor, should we need additional quantities placed, like a volume of void space inside a structure that we just have no idea,
Right.
and can't quantify ahead of time.
we
We only
could
can estimate it, so.
we could quantify that ahead of time, but to do so would increase the engineering costs, the investigation, so greatly that you couldn't realize savings down the road. For instance, if you want to geoprobe every 3 feet all the way across the face of the dam down to the toe of the dam, you probably could identify those voids. But to do so would cost several tens of millions of dollars to do the investigation. So there is some element of rolling the dice to say, we believe, based on the specs that we have from the original construction, based on our understanding of the topography and geology and construction practices way back when, that you're going to get that the engineer has a relatively good idea of what's going to happen.
And let me just add one thing to that, if I may, Counselor, that when these things play out in the course of the project, Mr. Reagan, we will need to, as we've done in 3 cases here with the existing contractor on Indian Lake, negotiate a change order if necessary. And because of our funding source with the Environmental Facilities Corporation, they will also review and approve that change order, because ultimately they're going to provide reimbursement for those costs. Even before that, we've got to respond to, and this is in the first instance from Colliers, if the contractor identifies an area where they say, hey, you prescribed this, but we're not sure this is really going to work, how about we do X instead of Y? That'll come in as an RFI. We'll review that. If it's ministerial matter, of course, the engineering firm will respond to it and will change direction. If it's material or significant, and in this case, in 3, started with maybe 4 that have been condensed issues that kind of fit that category into 3 change orders that we're in the process of executing. That is, we go through that formal change order process.
Okay, so you guys, again, we're going to discuss this. So
Sure.
We're going to have this
Yeah,
discussion.
yeah.
Going, I don't want to use everybody's time, so I got 2 things to ask on it. 3. One is, when you have uncertainties, you develop contingencies. You build in contingencies for the financial process and also for going out and bidding, of going through, and you increase the contingency based on the unknowns of going through or with a lack of engineering. Okay, so I think we all agree to that process, right? That makes sense.
And we utilize it.
Yeah, you got the engineering group that did the engineering on the anchors of coming back. They're saying that they missed it and may need to put in some more anchors. When are they held accountable for the work they did? Because we paid them, and it's not like we're not paying a lot of money for pre-engineering. Compared to what I typically see in my career, you're doing a lot of pre-engineering, but meanwhile, the scopes keep coming in and additional money is required. And so that's why I ask, is government different than in the free enterprise area where you come in with a budget or you come in with a quote and stuff,
I
and
think-
unless there's a major scope change, you're held accountable to come in that budget.
I think it is different in this respect. New York State government is prescriptive when it comes to how to procure engineering services versus construction services, and maybe it's state finance law 36A. Okay. And that says that for architectural services, engineering services, and surveying, and so a very limited scope of specific services that state government entities would need to procure. You may not simply go out and get those services via a low bid process.
It's a qualification, evaluation based selection, and then a negotiation of a contract price. So it's
So-
not a bid.
You want to make sure you have somebody that this isn't their first ball game doing this, what you're saying.
State-
On a
state's
dam,
most
which I think,
concerned about
which on a
having
dam, which probably makes sense,
qualified
you know?
rather than
Yes, I
cheapest,
I would agree with you.
who might not be qualified.
All right, and then that's whatever, so I'll,
But unfortunately, it requires us sometimes to come back and have these difficult conversations, especially in the context of this information.
but to me, it's not a difficult conversation for it. You know, I feel my responsibility is to ask the questions
Sure.
of going through because of the dollar amount. And I know people may not like that and stuff, but again, I'm not an engineer, but I've been in a number of projects over the years. And when I sit down and you start saying these things, you sit there and say, how can I sit here and not ask some questions and understand the process of going on?
But if we were building a barn,
Mhm.
and we started from scratch,
Yeah.
you would, assess the site, you'd figure out, are there wetlands, are there rocks, are there shale, are you building it on a landfill, what is your foundation gonna be? And from that point, you're building up, and you have a very good understanding of what the expenses should be going forward. Maybe wood changes, price, or, regulations change and you can no longer use an asphalt roof. But all in all, you have a very good understanding of what you're doing. This is different. This, if for instance, we hired an engineer to construct a new dam in a location adjacent to the existing dam, you could come up with a much more precise figure for what your end cost should be. Here, you're making some assumptions, you're guessing as to what they did in the past and what your conditions are going to be, and where it is more difficult to figure out exactly what they did. We're taking a calculated risk to not expend an enormous amount of money up front in engineering, recognizing that there's the potential that there may be conditions which are not obvious.
Yeah, Rob, I understand that stuff really. I mean, I'm not like, I don't understand that where you have a scope and the possibility of a drift inside of a scope when they go and start a project. You go and put a new piece of equipment and nobody took into account the electrical systems had to be upgraded or there wasn't air enough to handle it. I understand all that stuff. I mean, that's contingency. You go in and then you learn from it as you go. You take a look at it. It just seems to me that, and I'm just curious, mine's not an attack on anybody here. Mine is this, our contractors and stuff, is this how it is in government? That I can come back and keep taking a suck at the pump for more money.
But
That's,
here's
and when do they say no?
you've also hit on the other side of this, right? We've got the engineering side of it, and now we go to the construction side, and we have a number in mind, what we think this is gonna cost. The engineer has helped us determine what that number should be, and now we're seeking low bid, right? And the construction company comes up with a low bid. If our engineer gives us a number and we throw on a contingency,
Mhm.
and all of that is public, now we throw on 100% contingency, our low bid is gonna be 100% of what our engineer told us the project ought to cost. So yeah, government is different. We can't hold everything completely close to the vest. There are certain things that are out there, so we have to take some risks or all of our projects are gonna be.
I'm probably the only one that has these questions, so I has to set up some time, just so I understand that. I don't want to tie anybody else's time up. So I could come back with 3 or 4, and I don't want to do that, so.
Any other comments or questions? We have a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor of approving amendment number 7 to the Indian Lake First Engineering Assessment Contract? Aye. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next one is a resolution to authorize the transfer of state lands under the regulating district's jurisdiction to the village of Northville. Mr. Lester.
On September 24th, the governor signed Chapter 403 of the Laws of 24, authorizing the regulating district to transfer such lands to the village of Northville as are needed for the maintenance of a dam, roadway, and bridge, in order that the village can build a pedestrian walkway over the causeway that creates the Northville Lake, or also known as the Little Lake at Hunter Creek. I think the village calls it the Hunter Creek Dam. We call it the Northville Dam. In 1928, we built a causeway. In 1930, that causeway suffered a failure. And we agreed with the village in an MOU dated October 9 of 1935 that the village would take our money and they would rebuild the causeway, and from that point forward they would maintain that area. So we own the land and the village is responsible for maintaining the causeway and the roadway that goes over it.
This is the area up here.
Yes, on the, those of you.
John has that up on the screen. The village would like to, on the inside of that corner, build a pedestrian walkway. And we basically have acquiesced to that. The governor has executed a law that gives us the authority to sell those lands. And all this resolution does is actually give the board's authority to staff to move forward and sell those lands. The law that the governor signed suggests a Mets and bounds description, and we're not entirely sure that that Mets and bounds description is 100% accurate. The village, like us, wanting to be 100% accurate, has commissioned a survey which will give us that Mets and bounds description. I think Dan is meeting with their surveyor.
I'll be there as well this Thursday.
Okay.
Yep.
This Thursday. And we want to make sure that we convey those lands that are necessary, but don't convey any lands that have an existing permit on them, so that we don't impact anybody that shouldn't be impacted.
Are there any permits for that?
Not what you see here if you're looking at the dam and causeway, but on either end there are, Mr. Reagan. So again,
Well, that one side by the Little Lake Beach,
Yeah.
that's where people fish all the time, so that's permitted?
correct. The village of Northville has a permit that covers a lot of this area. I don't
Okay.
know if that's part of the same permit. We could definitely
But that's who has
But-
it, the village of Northville.
Correct.
Okay.
And we don't want to impact any private permittees, obviously,
Yeah, right.
in this transaction.
And as you know, there are various tracts of land that were purchased back in the 20s. The first set of 20s. And that patchwork makes up, I think it's 4, but it might be 5 tracts of land that are impacted. And we want to make sure that all of them are recognized and they take only those portions they need. So basically, we need the board to approve the resolution so that we can finish negotiations with the village. They can draft up a deed that uses the description their surveyor comes up with. John can execute the deed and the village can move forward with their project. The village, are seeking federal funds, and one of the key elements of their application for those funds is that they control the lands that are the subject of that application.
And I think it's fair to say, Counselor, that it's unique that this is infrastructure on the Great Sacandaga Lake for which, by virtue of this agreement, we already do not have responsibility. It would be far more complicated if the village did not have complete, I think, responsibility and jurisdiction of this infrastructure already, which they do by virtue of this 1935 agreement. So you can look at it maybe as some administrative cleanup, which, again, as Mr. Leslie has indicated, will be necessary for them to access the grant funding needed to do this important public safety project.
That is a huge safety issue. I just wonder a kid hasn't been killed on that bridge on a bicycle. So you see 2 boats come down and,
It's risky.
kids on bicycles going across there at the same time and people going quick than they ought to.
Yeah.
That's,
Sir.
That'd be a good thing. They needed that years ago.
Yeah.
It's people, when they walk right on the roadway and, on the side there, that time, sometimes you end up getting hit.
I agree. Well, we need a motion to authorize the transfer to the village of Northville.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Reagan?
We have a second?
I would second that.
Mr. Hayes?
How much we getting?
$1.
$1.
Should we got $1 of a 6-pack, John?
I was gonna ask. I thought maybe we should have been negotiating. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And last, a resolution authorizing the expenditure of $6,995 for de-escalation skills workshop provided by Pollock Peace Building Systems. Mr. Callen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This resolution appears on page 16 in your packet, followed by the proposal referenced in the resolution from Pollock Peace Building Solutions. As you'll see from the proposed resolution, this is really to equip our personnel with the necessary tools that increasingly are useful in dealing with people who are aggrieved for one reason or another, some of whom come in willing to have a conversation and to do so calmly and rationally. And some, frankly, as I think public servants in all sectors are seeing, not always willing or able to have that conversation respectfully and rationally. And I think, primarily, certainly our field personnel, Dan and Danielle, Stephanie Porter here in the office, Matt Ginter, or any one of the crew that may be out in the field, but any one of us who may be, we don't have a huge workforce, so it's not unusual to find 1 or 2 of us alone in any of the offices where we do get people from the general public coming in. And of course, we want to continue to provide, and we're talking about some new tools to make sure we're doing it appropriately in conjunction with Mr. Reagan, exemplary customer service. So we don't want to wall ourselves off, but we need to make sure that when our employees get into difficult situations, they can extricate, just like I'd like to extricate myself from the sentence, in the appropriate way and in the safe way. because that's paramount for all of us here. We identified Pollock Peace Building Solutions as a company that specializes in providing this training for government workers, because again, sadly, the trend that we have seen is increasingly an expectation on a very small segment of the population when they are upset by something, an expectation that they can go after a member of the public, or excuse me, a member of a government agency and express that with some occasionally inappropriate behavior. So we just want to arm our employees with these tools to be able to address those situations. Pollock Peace Building Solutions has an in-state trainer, so we will bring all staff in for in-person training somewhere in the Utica area, so that everybody can travel to and back from the location in one day. And with that, we'd ask for the board's support, and I'll pause for any questions the members may have.
Sounds good to me. We have a motion authorizing the expenditure of $6,995 for de-escalation skills workshop provided by Pollock Peacekeeping Systems. Motion?
Before the motion, is there any way that us as board members can attend that too?
Yes, there is.
I'm not going to it.
No, I'm Mr. Hayes, I'm glad you asked that question. This provides, it's a one price training for up to 25 personnel. As you know, it's been a few years since we get to the number 25 just with employees. So we do have some room for members of the board to attend. So if any members of the board could let me know if they're interested, we will incorporate, your schedules when we try and get this on the calendar.
Yeah, because I was reading that on the end there, it's up to 25, and a
Absolutely.
little bit extra for anybody else.
No question. And as Chairman and I were just talking yesterday in advance of the board meeting, it's not unusual when members of the public know that you're on the board, or perhaps the chairman, that they may want to express directly to you how they've been affronted in some way. And certainly that's available to up to 4, I think, members of the board that might like to participate.
Well, I'd like to attend. I mean, that's
Great.
Yeah, I would too.
Great.
The company spent a lot of money trying to make me not be an asshole. It hasn't worked.
He's not gonna start now.
It has never worked.
Okay, we got the motion in the second.
A second if nobody has it. You did?
Any further discussion?
Hayes and Mr. Reagan?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Whoa. Staff and committee reports, General Counsel, Mr. Leslie.
I really have nothing to report. There are no positive developments in the negotiation with Erie, between Erie and the AG. The AG basically has said that they have drafted a complaint, and that complaint is under review. I can say there have been no FOIA requests since the beginning of November, which I attribute to the fact that we put everything in the board packet, that we discuss things robustly as we go forward. So there's not much mystery as to what we do. So that's fine. Available for questions.
Any questions? Thank you. Director of Administrative Services, Mr. Sleep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My report is located on page 37. During the reporting period, I performed the quarterly internal control audit at the Black River area office. Proper controls and processes are in place and everything's working effectively. As Executive Director Callahan mentioned, access permit renewals have been mailed, and we tried something new this year. If you have an online account, you received a cover letter with no paper renewal, with instructions telling you to go online to pay your online renewal. As of this morning, 2,209 renewals have been processed. Of that number, 2,013 were paid using the online portal. So it's a very positive process, and we're at about 50% renewals at this point, with only having been, 2 weeks with renewals out.
Stephanie, how much time did that save? from people's work here by doing that.
Oh, it'll save a lot because when the paper renewals come in, we usually stack them up till we get a certain amount, and then 2 or 3 of our staff members will open the envelope, separate them, verify the checks match the renewals.
Yeah.
Log in the checks, log in the renewals.
You don't have a time frame about of how much time it
I
saved.
can figure that
No,
out.
no,
but
don't
we're
spend-
gonna-
I
we're gonna-
just-
It's
no.
gonna be hours
I would
Yeah,
I would
it'll
have
be
thought
a
it
lot-
would have been a
yeah.
lot. But
because.
It's gonna be months of time.
Yes.
It's a lot of time.
Everybody doesn't send it in at the same time.
Because it's all done electronically now.
Could I add
Sure.
one thing to that? I do want to note, and there was some debate, discussion based on our heading in this direction over the last couple of years, whether to send the online account holders anything in the mail. And we opted to do that, send them a cover letter, but not a paper renewal. We're glad that we did that because one of the things that we've learned this year, right, is that some people signed up for an online account, created an online account, but never had any intention of renewing that way. So they have now, they've called in, we've said, no problem, we'll send you in the mail a paper renewal. And would you like us to cancel your online account? Yes, please. So we've done that. But had we only sent the emails to those people this year, it would have created on the other side of the process, maybe even more time. In the future, we would very much like to get to the point where we're the only people getting anything in the mail are the paper renewal people. And that, I think, would you agree, Stephanie, would result in an even greater savings of time, which we'd then want to quantify.
Correct, because right now we're still stuffing 5,000 envelopes or 4,845 envelopes. If we cut out people with online accounts, which would be close to 3,000, there's 3,000 less envelopes for stuffing, mailing. It will save staff time. 3-4 years ago now, we started this online process, the database, and each year we're learning something new, the learning curve, but it's getting more efficient.
You know, if we do that survey, one question we may want to ask is, do you use that process? And if not, why?
It's in there.
Okay, it's
Yeah,
good.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah. And I do also want to note, at the risk of stealing even more thunder, and she'll kick me under the table if I do, that we do intend to roll out this year online work permit processing as well. So that'll be new functionality in the system.
We're
And
ready.
Stephanie's been working with our consultant and staff here for months on that, and we're in good shape.
So then, just a couple other things. The last board meeting, Executive Director Callen mentioned the webcam that we're working on. The webcam is up and running on our website. So if you find yourself up in the morning and you want to see the sunrise, you can do it from the comfort and warmth of your own house. Go to our website and click on the webcam link, and you can see the beautiful sunrises that I'm usually taking with my camera.
Is it on the bald eagle? Is it on the bald eagles?
No, I don't want you to see that.
Well, let's find out.
I
It's
can.
there.
I control the pivoting of the camera. So yes, I could actually. Thank you for that idea. I can watch them from my office.
They're just
And-
beautiful to see. Right there.
So the last thing is just on pages 38 through 40 are the contract status sheets. Those are included for your review as they satisfy the public authority law requirement. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer. Otherwise, that completes my report.
Very good. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
I had it up.
Move on to Chief Fiscal Officer, Mr. Lucas.
Mr. Chair, all you can find the CFO report on page 41 of your packet. Banking investment balances through the first 6 months of the year, for the first time this fiscal year, now exceed the balance through the same period last year. This arises because the regulated district has received reimbursement from the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation. Nearly $3.9 million is spent on the Indian Lake Dam Rehabilitation Project. We anticipate seeking reimbursement for another $2.6 million in the coming weeks. Please remember that these are reimbursements and not grants. For every dollar we borrow from EFC, a long-term liability is created. And once the project is completed, we will convert the short-term financing to long-term financing with an anticipated term of 30 years. And with that, I'll pause and be happy to answer any questions you have about regulating district finances or any other areas.
Any questions? Well, thank you.
Before I relinquish the talking stick, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, I'd like to call your attention to the signed affidavit you can find on page 80 of your packet. It lists necessary and reasonable expenses incurred by board members relating to their participation in November board meeting. Article 3, Section 2 of the regulating district's bylaws require the board to approve payment before any reimbursement can be made. And before you ask for a motion to approve these expense reimbursements, I'm happy to answer any questions you or any of the other board members may have about them.
Okay, so we need a travel reimbursement totaling $276.04 for 2 board members for the November meeting. We have a motion to that effect?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Hayes,
I'll second.
Second,
Ms. Allen.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief Engineer, Mr. Holton.
Mr. Chairman, my report begins on page 81. Both watersheds early at the end of, well, in the end of November, beginning December, experienced some frozen form precipitation, which was followed by some precipitation throughout the month of December, about 125% of historic average, producing about 100% of historic average inflow to Great Sacandaga Lake, 75% of historic average in Indian Lake, and inflow in the at the Stillwater Reservoir of approximately 86% of historic average. That inflow caused the reservoir, Great Sacandaga Lake and Indian Lake and Stillwater to rise somewhat, as you can see on the graphs toward the end of December. We are now nearly on target with all 3 of those, relatively speaking. And Old Forge and Six Lake continue to track along our target elevation as we approach our low elevation with all the reservoirs in March for spring refilling. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments? Thank you very much. Any other board member questions or comments? If not, we need a resolution. Oh, it's the next board meeting. So it's this way.
March 11th.
March 11th, here.
Sacandaga.
We need a motion to the next board meeting, March 11th, here.
So moved.
Mr. Hayes.
Second,
Second?
Mr. Byrd.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Now, motion for adjournment,
I'll make that motion.
second,
Second that.
all in favor?
Hayes.
Aye.
Thank you all very
Aye.
much, appreciate it. Very, very, I like this.
Efficient meeting.
Bye, Al. Bye, Ken.
We'll just wait until we